that time we were looking at an invitation to join the ranks of the Warner Brothers group. One word: lazy.
Behind the smoky backrooms of Texas bars and under the neon glow of rock's most outrageous nights, Billy Gibbons cut his legend. A bearded legend with a guitar sound as heavy as a razor to cut through steel. But beneath the charm and swagger of the blues was a man with a quick wit and an even quicker memory. Gibbons opened up at age 75 about the 5 artists he secretly despised. From a southern rock competitor who pushed him over the line to a pop artist who pushed him to his limits. These bombshells revealed the rivalries that contributed to his legacy. 5. Garth Brooks. For Billy Gibbons, authenticity was never something to be bartered. It was the very lifeblood of every note he played. To him, the blues wasn't a marketing gimmick or a fashionable sound to borrow. It was a way of life, earned through sweat, heartbreak, and long, smoky nights on stage. That's why, when Garth Brooks arrived in the early 1990s with his crisp cowboy hat and his polished country blues image, Gibbons reportedly rolled his eyes so hard you could almost hear it echo from Houston. Brooks was the new Nashville. Arena-sized country songs written for radio broadcasts, TV appearances, and suburban living room play. His songs had echoes of blues phrasing but lacked the soul. To Gibbons, it was forced imitation without passion. A Texas radio personality who interviewed Billy in 1993 recalled Gibbons had brushed off the Nashville fad as the sort of blues you can spill on your boots without staining them. That comment circulated like wildfire in music communities. Fans were chuckling. Nashville was not. Ironically, Brooks had for years named ZZ Top among his earliest influences. He respected their swagger, their southern origins, and their genre-bending fearlessness. But when Brooks started mashing country pop with Texas blues flavor, Gibbons took offense. That man's got all the polish, but none of the dust, he once griped to a fellow guitarist backstage at a Dallas show. He's playing barbecue sauce music, sweet, bottled, and made for TV. It came to a head at the 1991 American Music Awards, when the two men were in the same green room. Witnesses reported that Brooks, charmed and good-natured, went over to Gibbons and greeted him with a grin and a friendly handshake. "Man, I love your stuff," he exclaimed. Billy nodded curtly and responded, "Glad to hear it. Don't wear it out." The atmosphere in the room immediately became tense. Brooks laughed it off, but those nearby noticed that Gibbons didn't even smile. Later interviews by Gibbons never called names, but his tone indicated very clearly whom he was addressing. Asked to comment on the condition of contemporary country, he laughed and stated, "There's country, and there's fake country. Only when the two smells like diesel and heartache." Fans made instantaneous connections. The media labeled Brooks as the Nashville pretender, and the label clung for many years. Musically, they were worlds apart. Brooks attracted huge audiences with his balladry, light show choreography, and floor-sweeping stage effects, while Gibbons remained obsessed with tone purity, the sort that emanated from old amps and almost in tatters guitar strings. Brooks's colossal success symbolized, to Gibbons, the industry's fixation on perfection at the expense of passion, gloss over grime. The blues aren't supposed to shine, he explained to Guitar World in 1994. If it does, somebody's selling it, not playing it. Nashville's commercial formula was anathema to Gibbons. The city had established its empire on hooks and production values that were spotless, i.e., it had domesticated the rough edge that made Southern music so authentic. ZZ Top, by contrast, always rode best on imperfection. Their grooves were slinky, their riffs rough around the edges, their sound irreducibly human. As Gibbons would cheekily say, Nashville songs smell like perfume, but the blues smell like sweat. It wasn't a joke, it was a statement of intent. There were rumors of indignation for years. When Brooks began to lay plans for a roots blues album in the late 1990s, Nashville journalists wrote that Gibbons declined to comment publicly. Nevertheless, rumors persisted that Billy was seething in private. "They're labeling it blues once again," he supposedly told an acquaintance. "Call it what it actually is, just marketing with a twang." In 2001, Brooks invited Gibbons to appear in a televised blues tribute special. Gibbons politely declined and responded with a line that would become legendary: "The blues don't wear rhinestones." The phrase soon became a rallying cry among blues fans, even appearing on T-shirts. Brooks, ever the gentleman, never publicly replied, though insiders said he was deeply hurt. Gibbons wasn't targeting Brooks personally, though. Garth represented the greater issue: the trend of musicians who had pirated the music he cared about most. "It ain't that the man can't sing," Gibbons told a radio show once in a rare, unguarded interview. "It's that he's singing about heartbreak with a $1,000,000 grin." That encapsulated their aesthetic split, the implicit struggle between honesty and broad appeal. In reality, the two men embodied two sides of the American dream. Brooks was the entertainer, the one who expertly walked the line of connection through spectacle. Gibbons was the purist, remaining faithful to the unbridled roots that constructed him. But for the Texas bluesman, the path to truth did not lead through Music Row. It led through sweat, dust, and heartache, not through confetti and stage lights. But while Garth Brooks' polished style of country irritated Gibbons, the next betrayal hit much nearer to home. 4. Stevie Ray Vaughan. In Texas, blues is not just a genre of music. It's a sacred trust. The musicians who emerge through smoky bars and late-night jamming sessions constitute a brotherhood based on respect, tone, and integrity. That's what made the tale of Billy Gibbons and Stevie Ray Vaughan so pathetic. They weren't born rivals. To the contrary, Stevie at one time referred to Billy as his hero. But what started out as admiration eventually morphed into rivalry, and at the very least, according to those around Gibbons, a profound sense of betrayal that he held onto for years. Their lives first intersected in the early 1970s, many years before either man was a household name. Stevie, just a few years out of his teens, was the ambitious young guitarist wandering the streets of Austin's music world, poring over Gibbons like a sacred manuscript. "He used to sneak into our shows and hang outside the amps," Gibbons recalled in an interview. "Didn't say much, just stood there and listened." And listen he did. Stevie soaked up Gibbons' heavy Texas shuffle, his wiry tone, and even his assured swagger. Flattering at first to Billy. By the early 1980s, though, Vaughan had burst onto the national scene. His debut album, Texas Flood, wasn't successful. It was a statement of bold intent. The world began calling Stevie Ray Vaughan the new king of Texas blues. Magazines hailed him as the savior of the genre, a title that didn't sit comfortably with Gibbons, who had been representing that very style for 2 decades. He didn't like hearing people say Stevie brought Texas blues to the world, recalled ZZ Top's former engineer Joe Hardy. Billy felt he'd been playing that for years before Stevie ever picked up a guitar. The first genuine indications of tension surfaced in 1984, when a reporter asked Gibbons for his reaction to Stevie's success. Ever the calm man behind his sunglasses, Gibbons said the kid can play. But those around him let it be known that his tone was chillier than it appeared. According to reports, Billy griped about Stevie's sound being a little too close, especially the heavy, fat tone Vaughan was getting from his Stratocaster and Tube Screamer setup, a configuration very similar to Billy's previous system, which accounted for much of his frustration. The situation further deteriorated when Stevie's management allegedly contacted Bill Ham, the producer for ZZ Top, to assist them in finding a studio. Billy felt that was stepping over the line, said a veteran roadie. He said to me, "That kid isn't stepping into my turf. He's trying to put on my boots." Gibbons, a supporter of younger artists in general, would clam up whenever Vaughan's name was mentioned. In interviews, he routinely deflected or minimized encomiums until cornered, and even then gave short, uncertain, and excessively polite responses, as if he would rather stand at arm's length than fight. The tension at last reached a boil at the 1985 Montreux Jazz Festival, where the two men had been asked to play. Gibbons had been on the festival's wish list for years, while Stevie was still seeking international fame after being booed there in 1982. One backstage report said Stevie went up to Billy and said he was his inspiration. Gibbons allegedly flashed a slight smile and said, "You learned fast," then walked away. The cold, brief encounter became Texas blues legend, distinguished by how brief it was. There was also plenty of rumor about a studio session that never materialized. Stevie had planned on recording a dual guitar jam with Gibbons, a passing of the torch symbolically, but Gibbons bowed out because of scheduling. Sources claim he told friends in private, "I don't pass the torch to someone who already has my flame." It wasn't pure hatred, it was pride and the hurt of seeing a student become the center of attention. In 1985, Soul to Soul charted, with critics already referring to Vaughan as the heir to Hendrix. Meanwhile, ZZ Top rode high on their MTV hits, glossy, synth-heavy songs that were light years removed from the gritty blues that had made them stars. Fans started arguing about what was real Texas music. "That drove Billy crazy," recalled a close friend. He admired Stevie's ability, but resented the fact that people used him as the measuring stick for ZZ Top. However, with envy and tension, but never a bad word for Vaughan. When Stevie perished in a senseless accident in 1990, Billy was among the first to make a statement. He was a brother in tone, and Texas lost its best. Fans found the words sincere. Friends nearer to him were more reflective of years of silent remorse. "He never found closure," Hardy said. He wanted to indicate to Stevie how much he respected him, but also to tell him to leave him alone. Now he never could. Over the succeeding years, Gibbons showed his respect discreetly. At a lot of ZZ Top concerts in the 1990s, he'd insert snippets of Pride and Joy or Texas Flood into his solos, a nod of silence to the one who had once worshipped him and later competed with him. But even those gestures seemed tinged with sadness, as if he was grieving the loss of a brother. "Billy didn't despise Stevie," said a musician from Texas. "He despised what they experienced, the deep soul bond between them that didn't even require words." But if his feud with Stevie Ray Vaughan pushed Billy Gibbons' pride to the limit, the next would tax his patience even more. 3. Lynyrd Skynyrd's Ronnie Van Zant. To most of their fans, the notion of a feud between ZZ Top and Lynyrd Skynyrd seems unthinkable. Two Southern rock legends forged from the same combination of grit, guitars, and whiskey-fueled rebellion. But behind the smoky stages and deafening crowds, all was not so harmonious. Billy Gibbons and Ronnie Van Zant both adored the South, but fought over something much deeper, the real soul of Southern rock. When egos clashed during tour, brotherhood became a battleground. It started in 1974, when Tres Hombres by ZZ Top was still charting and Skynyrd was soaring on Sweet Home Alabama. Promoters envisioned a dual tour, two titanic Texas and Florida acts coming together to unite the South under one banner of scorching guitars. On paper, it was ideal. In practice, it was waiting to happen chaos. "They were oil and gasoline," said one tour manager who worked for both acts. Billy needed precision, control, and groove. Ronnie needed raw fire, sweat, and whiskey-fueled passion. Both were correct,